A young person in white stockings approaches a grand, ornate doorway, surrounded by bright yellow flowers. The narrative introduces the commander of the Royal Knights, a formidable figure in shining silver armor. Next is a long-haired mage in a blue robe, a scholar who has unraveled the mysteries of magic. Finally, a man with an eye patch and haunting blue eyes emerges from the shadows, chains looming behind him. The world's hierarchy is established, extending even to the ruler of the underworld who governs the shadows. A butler and maid stand nervously as an unseen person angrily demands to be left alone. The same unseen voice cruelly insults a trembling maid, telling her to get out of sight, even as kinder thoughts are expressed. A hand reaches out in dismay as the crying maid is led away, leaving the speaker to exclaim in shock. A woman with brilliant red hair stares in horror, realizing she's cursed to speak with a vile and rotten mouth. Desperate for a solution, she's startled when a glowing pink window suddenly appears before her. The window reveals her mission: achieve complete synchronization to become the perfect Belinda and deactivate the Belinda translator. In a moment of pure relief, a chibi Belinda realizes there is a way out of her predicament. Her hope fades as the silent system window offers no clue on how to progress, prompting her to beg for an answer. A voice from outside asks Lady Belinda for permission to enter, startling her as she quickly agrees. While maids prepare her in a white gown, she thoughtfully repeats the name Shuval. She remembers that Belinda had an older brother, recalling a family portrait with obscured faces. Determined to understand her new family, she decides to gather information during the upcoming dinner. A maid announces she is ready, and Belinda's expression is one of quiet resolve. Belinda stands fully dressed in an elegant dark gown, presenting a striking and formidable appearance. An unseen narrator reveals that Belinda is infamous throughout the kingdom as its worst troublemaker. Yet, she is also a stunningly gorgeous trendsetter, gracing the covers of magazines. Her hobbies are described as flaunting luxury, depicted as she casually lounges with a glass of wine. A glimpse into a book or scrapbook shows another portrait of the elegant, red-haired Belinda. A thought bubble dismisses Belinda's dark dress as dull, even as she herself looks at it with some consideration. Belinda lets out a slight huff, her expression turning sharp and annoyed. A butler announces Lady Belinda's arrival, and she enters a grand room wearing a vibrant pink dress. As the somber staff looks on, she internally wonders why the entire house feels so gloomy. A smiling red-haired young man at the dining table welcomes her warmly, expressing his relief that she came. She identifies him as Shuval, Belinda's brother. Before correcting herself, he's actually her cousin. A flashback reveals Belinda was adopted by her uncle, the Marquis, after her parents died in a carriage accident. The Marquis doted on her, his affection shown in a tender memory of him holding her small hand. Exploiting his kindness, the arrogant young Belinda ran wild, treating others with disdain while he favored her over his own son. At the dinner table, the new Belinda reflects that besides being an orphan, she shares nothing in common with the original. She assumes Shuval must resent her for stealing his father's love and tarnishing their family name. Shuval suddenly comments on her dress, catching her completely by surprise. He smiles gently and affectionately calls her by the nickname Belle. A hint of a blush on her cheek, she wonders if the two were closer than she had initially thought. Though she thinks "thank you," her cursed mouth twists the words into a vicious insult. "You worthless worm! Tell." Her tirade continues against her will, furiously questioning if he's insane for using her name so casually. Shuval starts to apologize, but she cuts him off, telling him to shut up while she panics internally over her runaway mouth. As she yells at him again, Shuval begins to cry with a soft sniffle. Realizing this is bad, she desperately decides to stuff her own mouth with meat to stop the verbal assault. Feeling helpless in the tense dining hall, she internally pleads for the Marquis to intervene. Shuval slams his hand on the table, his demeanor shifting as he coldly asks why his dear sister is throwing another tantrum. A sudden, inexplicable chill runs down Belinda's spine as she senses the dangerous change in his tone. Shuval now stands ominously behind her chair, his face cast in shadow. He calmly notes that it's only been a day since his father's funeral, yet she arrived without proper mourning clothes, a fact he can no longer overlook. As lightning seems to crackle in the air, she processes his words in shock, wondering whose funeral he meant. Her gaze falls upon an empty, ornate chair as the horrifying realization dawns on her. The Marquis is dead. Clutching her dress, she trembles as a voice off-screen softly speaks her name. In a hazy purple memory, Shuval holds Belinda and cruelly taunts her for being petty enough to give up just because his father is dead. He smiles with malicious glee, telling her to struggle more so he can enjoy watching her fall apart as she stares back in silent horror. With a crash, a plate and knife are thrown to the floor as a voice shrieks, "Get away from me!" Shuval clutches his hand, now bleeding, as a servant cries out in alarm that the young master has been cut by the knife. Confused by the chaos, Belinda wonders what they mean by cut, while maids frantically call for bandages for the injured Shuval. Panicking, Belinda desperately thinks that she didn't do anything, and that the red on his hand must be wine. Shuval lets out a pained groan, clutching his bleeding hand as if in genuine agony. A butler rushes to Shuval's side, asking if he needs a physician, while Belinda watches from a distance. Now supported by the butler, Shuval looks at her with a pained expression, asking Belle about another rumor, that she beat her maid this morning. As the staff whispers that she's completely insane, Belinda feels the weight of their judgment upon her. Condemned by the shadowy figures of the entire household, she's vilified for attacking the young master and disrespecting the late Marquis. Standing utterly alone in the grand hall, she realizes with dawning horror that she has no allies in this house. The reality of her situation sinks in. Her only protector is dead, and her cousin is a manipulative psychopath. Seeing her reflection in a golden spoon, a new thought forms. She wasn't born into privilege, but was merely gold-plated. Later, in her opulent room, Belinda lets out an exhausted sigh while reading a newspaper. The headline praises the generous Shuval for covering her debts, and she scoffs at the public image of a kind brother defending his wicked sister. Slapping the paper down, she seethes, realizing he's been systematically framing the original Belinda for crimes she never committed. Overwhelmed by the revelation, she leans back on the sofa, pressing a hand to her forehead in despair. Looking out the window, she sadly reflects that despite everything, she had truly hoped to get along with this new family. She recalls her past life as an orphan, taken in by an aunt after her parents died. Her memories continue, showing her difficult youth walking on eggshells before running away to survive on her own. Back in the present, she realizes her cursed translator only activates when someone is listening, turning her every thought into speech. Pondering her situation, she worries that she still has no idea how to raise the synchronization rate needed to break the curse. A sudden vision reveals the main threats to her life, 3 powerful figures described as the protagonist's patrons. She sees an image of the original Belinda being executed by a blonde man, learning they punish her to prove their devotion to the main character. The grim reality hits her. If she says one nasty thing to the protagonist, she'll be marked for death. Gazing at a bird flying free outside her window, she resolves that her only option is to escape and prioritize survival. Her escape plans are interrupted when she's startled by an older woman and a small boy at her door, announcing they've brought someone to attend her. Confused, Belinda listens as the woman explains that since her last maid resigned, this orphan child will be her temporary replacement. The woman presents the small, disheveled boy, explaining that Shuval brought him in as an act of charity and instructs him to greet Belinda. With no system window in sight, she internally curses its uselessness while trying to maintain a calm facade before the boy and the woman. Deciding to investigate on her own, she nonchalantly picks up an ornate hand fan. The boy looks up, revealing stunningly bright blue eyes and a sweet, innocent face that shines with a gentle light. Dumb! Her heart skips a beat as a purple aura of shock surrounds her, completely captivated by how adorable he is. She mentally swoons over his jet black hair and puppy-like eyes, realizing this adorable child must be the protagonist. While her mind calls him an angel, her cursed mouth betrays her, coldly remarking, "What a beastly sight!" As the head maid takes her leave, Belinda panics, realizing she's about to be left alone with the boy she just insulted. She tries to ask his age, but the translator twists her simple question into a rude interrogation. "How many damn years have you lived?" The boy startles but answers nervously, stating that he's 9 years old this year. An involuntary, menacing smile spreads across her face as her inner voice simply repeats, "Adorable." The terrified boy hiccups, and Belinda internally despairs over her uncontrollable, villainous expression scaring him. His heart thumping with fear, she calculates that with him being 9, she has only 6 months until the main story begins. Hiding her complicated feelings behind her fan, Belinda thinks that seeing his face is enough. She can now leave without regrets. The small boy simply stands there, looking up with a sad and lonely expression. He hesitantly calls out to her, breaking the silence and catching her by surprise. Eager to prove his worth, the boy proudly declares that he can clean very well, even scrubbing floorboards until they shine. He continues listing his skills, from making furniture sparkle to hanging laundry, desperate to be useful. With his back to her, the small boy promises Belinda he'll do anything she asks. Tears welling in his bright blue eyes, he clutches his shirt and begs her to please let him work here. His desperate plea seems to strike a chord with Belinda as she quietly utters, "Ah." A flashback reveals her past life. A woman collapsing onto a bed in a Spartan room, exhausted from a joyless and grinding existence. But even in that bleak world, she found a small joy, smiling at a cute, "Happy Birthday" message on her phone from a sweet, illustrated character. Back in the present, Belinda realizes with a gentle smile that if she abandons this child, she'd regret it for the rest of her life. She resolves to walk away without looking back in 6 months, while the sad-faced boy sits below, unaware of her plan. Staring ahead with determination, she reaffirms her decision to say goodbye in 6 months, without any lingering feelings. She asks the boy for his name, but he startles and replies that he doesn't have one, leaving her utterly shocked. Suddenly, a massive pink system window materializes in front of the startled Belinda. The window announces a new quest, to give the star of the hero a name, offering temporary guardian status as a reward. Hiding a blush behind her fan, she internally calls him her squishy baby and eagerly accepts the quest. The boy looks up in disbelief, nervously repeating the word, "A name?" Belinda flushes, amazed that the day has finally come to say the name she's chosen, and prepares to announce it. Though she thinks of the strong name Leo, her cursed mouth twists it into a teasing insult. "It's Little Nutty." An acorn bonks the boy on the head as he stares blankly, repeating the word, "nut." While a dejected boy stands in the background, she smugly asks how he likes his new name before realizing her catastrophic mistake. She internally panics, demanding to know who dared call her Leo Little Nutty, as a system window prompts her to enter a name. Officially christened Little Nutty, the small boy begins to cry, wiping tears from his eyes. Belinda frantically tries to undo her mistake, but a system error declares editing is impossible as she curses the lousy system. In a Lion King parody, she imagines holding him aloft, wishing for Leo to grow brave and strong like a lion. She laughs aloud, thinking Little Nutty is a perfect fit, while inwardly screaming that he's a lion, not a mouse. Trying to call him Leo, her mouth instead demands an answer from Little Nutty, who tearfully accepts his new ridiculous name. She lets out a furious internal scream, cursing the translator, which prompts a system warning to comply with the all-ages rating. In an imaginary spotlight, she collapses in despair, blaming her cursed mouth for ruining everything. The newly named boy looks up at her, utterly bewildered. Finally alone in a simple room, he flops onto the bed with an exhausted sigh. As he sleeps, he recalls how terrifying Lady Belinda was, her menacing, red-eyed glare haunting his thoughts. In his dream, he sees his old, dirty clothes being disdainfully presented in a frame. The nightmare continues as a furious Belinda yells about the dirt he's brought into her room, even as he sits in a luxurious bubble bath. Thump. Her tone softens as she places a rich chocolate cake before him, ordering him to eat it to fix his pitiful twig-like limbs. Now clean and dressed, he hesitates before the dessert, nervously asking if she really wants him to eat something as black as coal. Belinda's furious reaction makes him immediately retract his words, stammering that it's nothing. He braces himself and takes a bite, figuring he can just swallow the spoiled food without tasting it. His eyes fly open in shock as he discovers the cake is incredibly sweet. He happily devours the delicious food, feeling himself plump up while Belinda watches approvingly from behind her fan. Looking upon a gentle, glowing vision of Belinda, he reflects tenderly that he even has a name now. A grim flashback shows a cruel man dismissing his request for a name, saying, "Hey," or "you," is all he deserves. Sitting up in bed, he clutches his chest, cherishing the thought of having his very first name. He fondly remembers the delicious pastries and thinks about how she gave him a job and a name. Lying back down, he decides that even if she's terrifying, she might not be a bad person and vows to serve her well tomorrow. Drifting into a peaceful sleep, he wonders what might happen if he keeps trying his best. A brown-haired boy with freckles walks into the room and introduces himself as Toma, his new roommate. Little Nutty is thrilled to introduce himself by name for the first time, while Toma internally notes his strange luck. Toma scoffs, remembering harsher days for apprentices, and decides this newcomer needs to be taught the bitter taste of social life. At first, Toma dismisses it, but when Little Nutty presses him for an answer, he gives in. In a final cute panel, a chibi Belinda sips tea, lovingly calling Little Nutty her sweet baby and vowing to make him chubby and cuddly. In a bleak flashback, a younger Little Nutty is dragged down a hall by a man he calls Director, begging to avoid solitary confinement. The director grabs the crying boy, berating him for slacking off, while the boy desperately insists he wasn't. A chubby boy accuses him of sleeping in his room, but Little Nutty weakly explains he was just too tired. His pleas are met with a shout of, "No excuses!" followed by the sound of a sharp blow. He's thrown onto a wooden plank in a dark space and ordered to reflect on his selfishness until morning. Bang! The door slams shut, leaving the terrified boy alone in the darkness. "Alone," he cries, wishing he had a mom like another boy, Hayden, so he wouldn't have to endure this. He tearfully vows that if he had a mother, he would strive to be the kindest child in the world. Back in the present, a doctor informs Belinda that the boy's recent change in environment has caused him significant stress. The doctor adds that the boy hasn't been sleeping well, and Belinda listens with a grave expression. After the doctor departs, she sits alone by the bed, her head bowed in silent contemplation. A system window reveals the boy's pitiful stats and a critical stress level of 90,100, labeling him no brain. Overcome with guilt, Belinda covers her face, realizing she had no idea how much he was suffering. She looks at the feverish boy, regretting that she hadn't been more careful not to frighten him. Frustrated, she wishes she could raise the synchronization rate faster or had kept him away from her entirely. She feels lost, admitting to herself she doesn't even know the true ending of the story she's trapped in. A system screen explains that the game HPHM had numerous endings depending on quests and scenarios. In fact, new endings were released every month, creating a vast number of possibilities. The most coveted of all, the true hero ending, was infamous for being impossible for anyone to clear. Belinda berates herself for her carelessness in agreeing to take care of him for 6 months without a solid plan. Hearing the boy pleading in his sleep, she wonders if she needs to revise her entire strategy. She rushes to his side to wake him, calling out, "Leo?" as he murmurs that he was wrong in his nightmare. Still trapped in his dream, he begs the director for forgiveness while Belinda touches his sweaty forehead, realizing he's having a nightmare. Gently trying to wake him, she calls his name again, but he only murmurs the beginning of a word. Mo. Her gloved hand rests gently on his cheek as he sleeps. He whispers the full word, "Mom," and Belinda's eyes widen in utter shock. Still dreaming, the boy calls out for his mom, his small hand reaching up into the air. He grasps at nothing, desperately asking where his mother is. Deeply moved, Belinda looks down at him, her previous cold resolve beginning to shatter. She stands over his bed, clutching her chest as a profound change begins to stir within her. Her thoughts flash back to her initial fear. In the game, getting involved with him meant death. But now, reaching for his hand, she sees not the game's hero, but a lonely child who desperately misses his mother. With a newfound gentleness in her eyes, she decides that she, and no one else, will fill that void for him. She tenderly takes his small hand in hers. Clasping his hand, she solidifies her new vow. She will become his protector while in Belinda's body. Sunlight streams through a grand window, heralding a new day and her change of heart. She gently strokes the sleeping boy's hair, quietly wishing her Leo sweet dreams. The scene cuts to a dark memory of her threatening glare, questioning if she needs to repeat an order. In the servants' quarters, Thomas sleeps peacefully in his bed. He suddenly jolts awake with a startled, "Huh!" Lying back down, he wonders if the new kid ran away, scoffing that a little scare was all it took. In a dream or flashback, Toma lies in bed, thinking with annoyance about the new boy's seemingly lucky life. He's startled awake by the real Lady Belinda, who icily accuses him of talking nonsense to the rats. The brown-haired boy, Toma, startles awake in bed, wondering who the young lady is that everyone was talking about. The red-haired Belinda scolds him from across the room, accusing the sprouted potato of daring to touch what is hers. Toma tries to steady his nerves, thinking his service to Lady Chauvel should protect him, and feigns ignorance of her accusation. With a swift motion, a white, high-heeled shoe lashes out. Wham! Belinda kicks the boy in the leg, leaving him stunned with shock and pain. She lifts his chin with her fan, coldly asking if he's forgotten the consequences of meeting her gaze. Leaning in, she begins a chilling threat about what will happen if he crosses her again. Her threat concludes with a menacing glare as she reminds him of the fate that could befall his neck. A pink system window announces her synchronization progress has increased to 1100 for fulfilling her villainous role. Satisfied after her confrontation, Belinda walks away from the servants' quarters, thinking it felt good to put him in his place. Trembling on the floor, Toma hears her furious parting thoughts, warning him he's on her list for daring to mess with her boy. The scene shifts as Belinda gives a thoughtful, a pink system window glowing behind her. As she walks away, two servants whisper about how Lady Belinda came all the way to their quarters just to cause a scene. Realizing how to properly act the part, Belinda smiles smugly behind her fan, understanding what must be done. In a furious outburst, she fully embraces her villainous role, screaming at her staff for being lazy. She then goes on a rampage, demanding servants roll out a red carpet, buy every item from a new collection, and even camp outside stores for her. A system window confirms her success, showing her synchronization progress has jumped to 7,100, and she celebrates the rising numbers. Reclining amidst her new treasure, she reflects that she simply had to act like the real Belinda and wonders if she has a hidden talent for tyranny. Eating a sweet, she steels her resolve, deciding that for Leo's sake, she will nail the villainous role no matter the risks. Elsewhere, a red-haired man at his desk writes with a quill, wondering if Belinda is on a rampage again. An assistant waits for orders as the red-haired man notes her renewed spirits after a period of quiet. He dips his pen into an inkwell, deciding to let her be since there's no reason to stop her. His assistant changes the subject, reporting that a letter from the notary confirms his arrival at the mansion tomorrow to address the will. Leaning back, the red-haired man realizes the identity of the heir will finally be revealed. Standing, he learns from his assistant that they have secured the loyalty of merchant guilds, ensuring their plans will succeed. He reflects on his past, revealing he has long pretended to be a kind, ambitionless simpleton. As his reflection in a mirror shatters, he vows that his act ends today. He muses about arranging a marriage for his little Belle, deciding a sterile husband would be best since she dislikes children. With a cruel smirk, he adds that it would be troublesome if any child tried to leech off his family name. His loyal assistant bows, agreeing to search for a suitable candidate for her. In a peaceful garden, Belinda sips tea while Little Nutty naps in a nearby hammock. Little Nutty sleeps soundly and peacefully in the warm sunlight. Whump! Belinda is startled from her tea as Little Nutty suddenly tumbles out of the hammock. Panicked on the ground, The boy blames the comfy hammock for falling asleep, but Belinda coolly replies, "That was the point." As he apologizes profusely from the floor, she chides him for his lack of etiquette. He quickly scrambles into a chair, legs crossed primly, and nervously asks if his posture is okay. Hiding her amusement behind her teacup, Belinda internally squeals at how cute he is. Turning away, she remarks that he finally looks presentable, leaving him to wonder if she was just scoffing at him. She orders little Nutty to open his mouth, much to his blushing confusion. With a stern "now," she commands him, and a tiny, terrified version of the boy squeaks his compliance. A spoon is brought to his lips, and he obediently opens his mouth to be fed. As the flavor hits his tongue, his eyes fly open in a flash of brilliant surprise. In an imaginative burst, he finds himself on a giant lemon, marveling at the crunchy, meltingly gentle taste. He holds his blushing cheeks, overcome with a purely blissful and delightful expression. Back at the table, he exclaims that the treat is cold and super sour as Belinda orders him to finish his reward. As he eagerly agrees, Belinda clenches her fist, internally celebrating that he absolutely loves the lemon flavor her cursed mouth described. The boy hesitantly calls out to Lady Belinda, who turns to listen. Believing he wants to leave, she panics, internally screaming and wondering what she did wrong this time. He thinks back to his failures, remembering how he couldn't even shake out the blankets properly. He also recalls dozing off recently while she was being seen by the doctor. As he starts to explain, Belinda looks on with a deeply concerned and confused expression. With his head bowed in shame, he calls himself a useless servant who hasn't been able to serve her properly. She finally understands that he was trying to prove his worth, which is why he seemed so dejected when she took away his chores. A hand gently pats his head, causing his eyes to widen in complete shock. He looks up to see Lady Belinda patting him, utterly bewildered by the unexpected kindness. Gazing at him tenderly, she tells him all she wants is for him to grow up healthy and strong. She then adds with a slight smirk that she supposes that's too much to ask for right now. Through a cartoonish filter, Belinda thinks that the crying boy is pathetic and useless, like a chestnut as she inwardly groans. Returning to reality, she presents him with a lavish dessert spread, ordering him to eat everything and bulk up. She explains that only by growing strong can he be useful to her, promising to work him like a dog by her side forever. A close-up shows Belinda's determined expression as she internally vows to do her best. Misinterpreting her threat as a promise, the boy beams with joy, vowing to eat his best and become a super useful giant chestnut. Stunned speechless for a moment, Belinda hides her face behind her fan, dismissively stating that he finally understands. Internally, however, she's blushing and panicking, completely flustered that Leo showed her such an adorable smile. She struggles to contain her joy, desperately telling her pounding heart to be still and her mouth to stop smiling so she doesn't scare Leo. As she walks away, trying to compose herself with a deep breath, a voice calls out to Lady Belinda. She turns to find the head maid, wondering what she wants, and she rarely sees her. The head maid informs her that the young master, Cheval, is urgently looking for her, much to Belinda's annoyance. Outraged at being summoned, Belinda refuses to go, telling the maid not to interrupt her precious time with Leo. The maid clarifies that Cheval's summons is about the will, and Belinda's expression shifts with sudden interest. The scene changes to a grand hall where a maid complains about her aching legs while polishing the floor. The same maid wrings a cloth, lamenting that she had to stand outside a store since dawn and wonders how much longer she has to suffer. Another maid starts to gossip about Lady Belinda's lineage, but stops short when she sees Belinda herself walking nearby. The maids quickly hush each other, terrified that the lady might have overheard their conversation. Having heard everything, Belinda strolls past them, realizing their talk was about an inheritance. Pondering this new information, she finds a book on the legal code of the Xenos Kingdom, wondering why she hadn't considered it before. In a library, she flips through the book, confidently assuming that even with Cheval around, she'll still get a decent share. Her confidence shatters as she reads a law stating unmarried daughters can only inherit a limited amount, leaving her utterly shocked. Tuck! A tiny, furious Belinda slams the book shut. grumbling that her dream of being rich was good while it lasted. Sighing, she leans back in her chair, reasoning that even with the law, there should still be plenty of money left for her. The scene shifts to a bustling drawing room filled with nobles who have gathered for an announcement. A voice formally invites Lady Belinda to enter the room. Belinda pauses at the entrance, composing herself and adjusting her necklace before facing the crowd. Stepping inside, she wonders why so many onlookers have gathered for the reading of the will. A man calls her name, Belle, and she turns to face him with an annoyed glare. The red-haired man, Shuval, greets her warmly, noting it's been a long time since they've seen each other. She coldly tells him to get lost, but he casually continues, mentioning he heard she's getting along with the new servant. His seemingly innocent question about the boy's work ethic visibly infuriates Belinda. She inwardly fumes, realizing he's trying to tarnish her reputation by mentioning Leo, a tactic she finds disgusting. Misreading her fury, Shuval reaches out and asks if she's feeling unwell. Tuck! She sharply slaps his hand away, shocking him. She casually twirls a strand of her hair, feigning a look of indifference. Realizing her reputation is already shot, she decides to use this opportunity to raise her synchronization rate instead. Shuval smirks and takes her hand, deciding to play along with her act and properly tease her. Snapping open her fan, Belinda fully embraces her villainous role, icily questioning how a, quote, lowly mixed blood dares to touch her. In the sudden silence, she presses her attack, asking if he plans to stain her with his dirty blood, leaving him speechless. Shuval's expression hardens as his eyes flash with intensity, surprised by her bold confrontation. They hold a tense stare-down, with Belinda noting that he isn't one to reveal his true colors so easily. After a tense moment, Shuval turns and walks toward the front of the room. He turns back with a pleasant smile, welcoming her and inviting her to join him. Together they stand before a notary, their backs to the crowd of nobles, ready for the will to be read. The notary stands and swears an oath to speak only the truth according to the will. He certifies that the document contains the deceased's final, unaltered wishes. He begins reading from the will, which speaks of protecting the family's honor and passing that duty to the next generation, showing a portrait of the family. Shuval wears a confident, knowing smirk as the will is read. An onlooker whispers that Lord Shuval is the obvious heir, being the Marquis's biological child. Shuval smugly thinks that he never had any interest in becoming the head of the family anyway, as another guest scoffs at his arrogance. The notary begins reading Belinda's inheritance, as she impatiently thinks that her share is all that matters. He announces her inheritance is 100,000 gold, leaving Belinda utterly stunned by the amount. Onlooking nobles gossip that 100,000 gold won't last a year and the East Annex is a ruin, while Shuval smirks. Belinda blankly repeats the number 100,000 gold in her mind, still processing the news. In a mental flash, her brain goes into full operation, calculating that 100,000 gold is enough to live worry-free for 977 years. The notary continues, revealing she also inherits townhouses, a forest, and a beach, much to her surprise. As the notary adds a mine and the contents of a personal vault to her inheritance, Shuval's face twists in shock. The notary concludes that all the assets are bequeathed to Belinda as her marriage dowry. Belinda realizes with dawning horror that she must get married to receive the massive inheritance. In a flash of dark rage, Shuval silently seethes, realizing his father thwarted him, even in death. A mysterious man in a black mask observes the unfolding drama from within the crowd. The masked man calmly sips his red wine, his thoughts remaining a secret as he watches the scene. The scene transitions to Belinda sitting alone in a luxurious, sunlit dressing room. Sipping tea, Belinda reflects that her dowry amounts to a staggering 40% of the entire family fortune. She recalls the conditions. Her marriage partner will be chosen with her input, and she'll inherit after being married for 1 year. Another crucial clause is revealed. If she dies before inheriting, all assets are returned to society, not to the family. Belinda smiles with relief, realizing this provision means Shuval has no reason to harm her. A maid watches Belinda, wondering why she isn't using this opportunity to immediately find a husband, though admitting she has no plans to marry either. Puzzled by Belinda's inaction, the maid calls out to her, announcing that everything is ready. Belinda turns away, deciding to set aside her complicated thoughts for the time being. She declares that there's something far more important to attend to right now. The head maid proudly presents Leo, now dressed in a stylish and fashionable new outfit. Gasping internally, Belinda thinks he's incredibly cute and that this is the real Leo she knows. Leo shyly asks if he can accept the clothes, but Belinda coolly states it's for her own dignity. When she asks if that's all, the head maid flashes a sly grin, promising there's more. Assistants roll out racks of new arrivals, and an excited Belinda orders Leo to try them all on. Leo models an outfit with an 11-layer frill, which Belinda finds irresistible and immediately decides to buy. Flex! Overcome with excitement, Belinda goes on a massive shopping spree, ordering them to bag entire sections of the store. Blushing, she realizes her sense of money is going numb and considers stopping for the day. Hearing that the boots and gloves come as a full set, Belinda's irrational thoughts tell her she can't possibly resist. A system window suddenly appears, announcing her synchronization value has increased, leaving her confused. Leo timidly calls out to Lady Belinda from across the room. Seeing him sitting dejectedly amongst piles of boxes, Belinda panics, worrying that her excitement made him think she was bullying him. She quickly clears her throat, trying to regain her composure after her shopping frenzy. Outside, the shopkeepers weep with joy as they wave goodbye, thanking her for the massive sale. Belinda and Leo take a leisurely stroll through a beautiful garden in front of a grand white building. Enjoying the perfect day, Belinda closes her eyes and wishes every day could be this pleasant. Holding a large ice cream, Leo calls out to her, exclaiming in awe at the huge building before them. Belinda's peaceful mood evaporates as she stares at the building, realizing this is the place from the game. She recognizes the grand temple, marveling that it looks exactly like the game's illustration. Realizing that that must be here as well, she turns her head in search of it. In the center of the courtyard stands a magnificent sword, encased in a large shard of shimmering ice. Belinda and Leo walk across a bridge, making their way toward the legendary weapon. A scroll explains the sword's lore, a holy relic sealed 700 years ago, essential for achieving the hero's happy ending. As Belinda reaches out and touches the hilt of the frozen sword, a sense of hesitation fills the air. A system message describes the sword as the hero's star, which will grant the title of hero to whoever can pull it. Belinda lets out a sigh, lamenting that the stats required to pull the sword are still ridiculously high. An infographic details the game's impossible challenge, maxing out 3 stats, 2 of which are opposing forces, a feat she and countless others failed to achieve. Looking at Leo, Belinda feels a renewed sense of purpose, realizing she can raise his stats now, long before the original story begins. An idea strikes Belinda as she wonders if she could aim for the hero's ending, just as Leo calls her name. Leo holds up a 2-scoop ice cream cone, innocently asking if it's really okay for him to eat it all. With a stern look, Belinda orders him to devour it without leaving a trace, and the delighted Leo quickly agrees. Looking out over the grounds, Belinda reminds herself that she has to leave in a few months anyway. Her thoughts shift to a more important matter as she stares into the distance with a serious expression. She recalls how in the game she always pursued the clear-cut happy ending, which involved the hero wielding a glowing sword. Looking at Leo, she realizes the future she's planning for him is not one he chose for himself. As she gently wipes his face with a handkerchief, Leo looks up at her, still eating his ice cream. Kneeling before him, Belinda decides that no matter the ending, Leo's happiness is the only true ending that matters. Returning to the mansion with Leo and the maids, a butler welcomes Lady Belinda back home. Belinda orders a bath, but the butler apologetically stops her, saying something has come up. He informs her that a guest has been waiting, leaving Belinda with a questioning look. Standing before a grand set of doors, she scoffs at the idea of a guest, knowing the original Belinda had no friends. As the doors open, she glares forward, suspecting the visitor was either a mistake or sent by Chauvel. A mysterious man in a dark cape and a black mask stands in the sunlit room, his back turned to her. The masked man mistakes her for Lady Blanche, and Belinda notes his deep voice with annoyance. Facing the tall, imposing stranger, she racks her brain, wondering if a character like him ever existed in the game. The man apologizes and introduces himself as Alan Penadel, here on behalf of the Grand Duke Valuashtan. Alan formally states he has come for the young lady by order of His Grace, the Grand Duke of Valuashtan. Spotting a familiar crest on his shoulder, Belinda realizes he truly is from the infamous Northern Grand Duke's house. A game interface appears, detailing an ending where Leo joins the Valuashtan Ducal Knights, an option she recalls is fairly easy to achieve. She remembers the lore. The Valuashtan family guards the continent's northern barrier against demonic beasts, earning them the title of Demon Grand Duke. The chilling rumors resurface in her mind. The current duke wears a mask to hide a hideous face and slew his own family to seize power. Alan stands perfectly still, his masked gaze fixed upon her. Belinda shudders, feeling a murderous aura from him that seems fitting for a servant of the Demon Grand Duke. Now seated, Alan apologizes for his mask, explaining it's a rule for all Northern Knights when outside the duchy. She dismissively waves off his explanation, demanding to know what a knight from the backwater north wants with her. Alan remains composed under her glare, promising to be brief. He announces that his liege desires ownership of the Harrington mine and has a proposal for her, which leaves Belinda shocked. She immediately recalls that the Harrington mine in Valuashtan was one of the key assets listed in her dowry. Sipping her tea, she muses that news travels fast, with people already trying to claim her dowry before she's even married. Confident in her position, she tells him to state his terms, assuming it must be a worthwhile deal. As she coolly sips her tea and asks to hear the offer, Alan places a formal document on the table before her. He proposes a contract marriage with His Grace, followed by a divorce, causing Belinda to spit her tea out in shock. Flustered and sputtering, Belinda can't believe he's proposing divorce while presenting a letter of proposal. Her mind reels with questions. She understands they want her dowry, but a pre-planned divorce is a confusing tactic. Alan explains that after 1 year of marriage, when she inherits the dowry, she simply needs to transfer the mine to Valuashtan. He assures her that nothing else will be requested, as she listens intently from her gilded chair. Glancing away, Belinda considers the proposition, admitting to herself that it's a very tempting offer. She weighs her options, recalling she can't access her wealth until her wedding, and that a bride's dowry becomes marital property. This makes the offer even more suspicious. Why would the Duke offer such a favorable deal when he could legally take half her wealth? Wondering what scheme is at play, she asks Alan what kind of person the Demon Duke really is. Alan begins his description by confirming the Duke possesses all 4 limbs, a bizarre statement that leaves him looking confused and Belinda annoyed. Snapping a biscuit in frustration, she internally demands relevant information as Alan lists the Duke's generic virtues. Alan asks what specific information she'd like to know, making Belinda silently curse his denseness. A matchmaking chart illustrates her frustration. She needs the capitalist basics, but the Grand Duke's stats are all unknown. An AI-like version of Alan gives a uselessly literal description, prompting Belinda to wonder if she's talking to a robot. A vein twitches on the masked knight's temple, showing his composure is finally cracking. He seems flustered by the question marks on her mental chart, looking completely baffled. With a hardened expression, Belinda recalls the most important detail. Rumors say the Duke is a tyrant without equal. Belinda imagines that, like in a cliché novel, the nasty rumors are false, and the Duke is actually a cold-hearted beauty who's warm only to his lover. Alan bluntly confirms all the terrible rumors are true, prompting a slam, as Belinda declares, "Great." Standing decisively, Belinda formally announces that she is refusing His Grace's offer. With an infuriated glare, she points at Alan and warns him to never, ever play matchmaker again. Dismissing him completely, she orders her butler to escort Alan out, declaring their business finished. As she walks away, Belinda mutters to herself in exasperation, wondering what kind of man Alan is. A new plan sparks in her mind. Thanks to him, she'll now sound out the other nobles to see how much they'd pay her to disappear. Alan's voice stops her in her tracks as he asks to say one last thing. Belinda whips around with a startled and annoyed expression. She gasps in shock, finding Alan suddenly standing right in front of her and wondering how he moved so quickly. His gloved hand swiftly moves to gently touch her chin. Alan's fingers graze the red jewel of her choker as he quietly asks where she got her necklace. Startled by his sudden closeness, Belinda demands to know what he's doing, and he simply apologizes. A terrified Chibi, Belinda admits to herself that his actions scared her, as she thought he was about to punish her for refusing the proposal. Regaining her composure, she asks about her necklace, and Alan cryptically replies that the design suits his taste. Touching the choker, Belinda questions his statement while recalling that it has been on her body since the day she was reincarnated. Seeing his flustered reaction, she silently questions his taste in lace chokers on thick, manly necks. Alan asks if she would consider selling the necklace, but she flatly refuses and tells him to leave, claiming he's exhausted her. As he stands behind her, Alan announces that he will be staying in the capital for a while. Through the closing doors, he instructs her to contact the Valuashton townhouse if she reconsiders the proposal, ending with a soft, "Please take care of yourself." Now, in a new floral dress, Belinda looks forward with resolve, thinking, so this is it. Standing before a grand old building with Leo and the head maid, she identifies it as the annex where she will now be staying. Belinda orders the maid to open the door so she can have a look inside, and the maid promptly obeys. A gasp as she beholds the lavish interior, she muses that while the outside is old, the beautiful inside was worth her trouble. She calls out to Leo, who is nervously peeking through the doorway, asking why he hasn't come in yet. Leo stammers that he's hesitant because everyone says that things appear in the annex. When Belinda asks what's supposed to appear, a terrified Chibi Leo, surrounded by cartoon ghosts, squeaks out, "Goo, goo, ghosts." Belinda scoffs, thinking that in a world of magic and spirits, ghosts aren't entirely out of the question. With Leo watching nervously, she pulls back a heavy curtain to reveal the view from the window. Her confident expression shifts to shock, letting out a small shriek before murmuring an impressed, "Wow." She stares out at a sprawling, gloomy graveyard, dryly thinking that while she's heard of a river view, a graveyard view is a first. Leo covers his eyes in fear, asking why there's a cemetery right next to the mansion, as Belinda begins to explain. She recounts the family's history. Once so poor, they buried their dead in the backyard, until one ancestor with a genius for business changed their fortunes. That ancestor's wealth allowed them to buy all the surrounding land and build the main estate, turning the original house into an annex and graveyard. Belinda concludes that the private annex is actually perfect for raising Leo away from prying eyes, graveyard view be damned. Calling Leo little nutty, she tells him to follow her up the grand staircase, and he timidly agrees. At the top of the stairs, before a set of ornate double doors, she announces that this is the solitary cell where he'll be staying. Leo looks up in confusion, asking what a solitary cell is and fearing it will be like the dark storage room at his orphanage. As Belinda opens the doors, Leo clasps his hands and desperately prays that there won't be any ghosts inside. He steps into a bright, sunlit room, completely stunned. Looking around at the opulent bedroom, Leo stands in disbelief, still trying to process her words about a solitary cell. His eyes land on a teddy bear and rabbit plushie, realizing the room looks just like the one a friend named Hayron used to dream about. Timidly pointing, Leo asks Lady Belinda if she might have opened the wrong room by mistake. Belinda glares, asking if he dares to dislike it, causing a panicked Leo to quickly insist that's not it at all. A small, unreadable smile crosses her lips as she thinks to herself that the whole situation doesn't feel real. Announcing she's tired, she dismisses Leo to do as he pleases for the rest of the day, and he quickly agrees as she walks away. Left alone in the magnificent room, Leo looks around in a daze, wondering if it's truly okay for him to stay in such a wonderful place. A close-up shows his face, flushed and overwhelmed with emotion. Overcome with joy, Leo dives face first onto the plush, soft bed. Sitting stiffly on the grand bed, Leo frets about messing up Lady Belinda's furniture and decides it's time for sleep. Under the soft glow of the moon, Leo sleeps peacefully in the enormous canopied bed. As the wind rattles the window, Leo lies awake, feeling all alone in the vast, dark room. Click! Unable to sleep, Leo quietly opens his door and peeks out into the hallway. He finds Belinda awake in her own bed, propped up against a mountain of pillows while reading a book. Looking at him, she remarks that since the master is awake, a servant shouldn't dare fall asleep first. She hands him a mug of warm milk, bluntly telling him to pour the tongue-burning liquid down his throat, and he feels its comforting warmth. Calling him Little Nutty, Belinda graciously offers to let him experience her elegant reading. An excited Leo plops down on the bed, ready to listen to her story. The story begins, telling of a cursed princess who was forced to say the opposite of her kind thoughts, her words always coming out as cold as ice. The curse twisted her compliments into insults and her gratitude into scorn, turning "you're so wonderful" into "you're so tacky." The story explains the most painful moment of all was when she confessed her feelings to the prince she secretly loved. Instead of love, her words came out as, "I hate you more than anyone," leaving the princess to weep alone. In truth, she cherished the prince, but he, like everyone else, believed only her cruel words and began to distance himself from her. Heartbroken and misunderstood, the princess eventually fell silent, knowing no one would listen to the true feelings in her heart. As the story ends, Leo realizes with a start that the cursed princess's story is just like Lady Belinda's. He recalls overhearing others call her mean and cruel, but knows the Lady Belinda he has seen is different. He admits to himself that she is indeed very scary, but still, he sees something more. A memory of her gently touching his face in the garden solidifies his belief that only he knows her true kindness. Overcome with emotion and exhaustion, Leo drifts off to sleep, his head resting peacefully on Belinda's lap. In another location, a hand dips a white quill into an inkwell as someone muses about a dowry. A red-haired man sitting at an ornate desk remarks to his subordinate that the old man truly thought everything through. His subordinate confirms that he is now officially the head of the Blanche family, a position the red-haired man declares he has wished for all this time. He smirks with annoyance, complaining that a stupid wench with noble blood stole his gold. Now that his succession is confirmed, he plans to discuss business, starting with asking the prince about welfare projects. He explains that the prince would surely take interest if a large sum of money were returned to society, earning praise from his subordinate for his wise judgment. Looking down at his desk, the red-haired man bitterly wonders if Belinda was so precious to his late father that he'd try to hold him back even from the grave. He vows that his father's wishes will not come to pass, declaring his opposition meaningless now that he's a corpse in the ground. Elsewhere, Belinda startles in her bubble bath, a sudden chill running through her. A chibi version of herself shivers amongst the bubbles, wondering aloud if someone just insulted her. Picturing the laughing face of the red-haired man, she dismisses the feeling as predictable. Relaxing in her bath, Belinda acknowledges that from her point of view, she's in a vicious survival game, but is thankful for her wealth. She soberly recalls that in the original story her character dies, and she can never know when betrayal will strike. While choosing a dress, she wishes for an extra life like in the game, which suddenly sparks an idea. A look of brilliant realization crosses her face as she wonders why she hadn't thought of it sooner. Ding! A pink system window abruptly appears, displaying a warning that access to the temporary guardian function is denied. Frustrated, Belinda glares at the pop-up, annoyed that even this brilliant idea requires permissions. Her resolve unshaken, she touches a pink dress and decides it's not impossible to achieve her goal. She reasons that if paid items exist, then someone, somewhere, must be able to create them. With determined eyes, she focuses on the one paid item she absolutely must acquire for her survival. The item is revealed, the fountain of all things, a beautiful bottle containing a shimmering liquid topped with a blue crystal. A description explains it's a legendary masterpiece from the mage Vivian, capable of regenerating lost limbs like a lizard's tail. Descending the stairs, Belinda recalls how indispensable the item was in the game for preserving one's life. Based on the item's description, she concludes that the creator of the Fountain of All Things must be the legendary mage, Vivian. With a confident smile, Belinda thinks that if her memory serves, She knows exactly where to find the person she's looking for. At a grand temple, a priest instructs a line of commoners to form an orderly queue for food distribution. A woman tearfully thanks the priest for the food she's received. Standing in the crowd, Belinda recalls that the game's spawn quest took place at the main temple and wonders if she can find her today. Deciding she must wait, Belinda is suddenly spotted by the cloaked, orange-haired woman, who gasps in surprise from behind a pillar. The cloaked woman nervously asks the priest if he could spare any remaining bread, but he apologetically informs her they've already sold out. Belinda's head turns with a start as she overhears the conversation nearby. The cloaked woman shrinks back, thinking to herself that she must look very suspicious. Belinda approaches and scathingly asks if mages these days beg for food in temples, questioning the woman's pride as she points her fan at her. Ack! The woman flinches in shock as the priest behind her wonders aloud if she is truly a mage. As the priest asks for confirmation, Belinda coolly observes that in this world, mages and priests are known not to get along. The priest curtly dismisses the cloaked woman, telling her the distribution is over, and she dejectedly walks away. As the woman laments another day of filling her stomach with only water, Belinda calls out, telling her the conversation isn't over yet. Framed by brilliant purple flowers, Belinda suggests that instead of begging the gods, the woman should try begging her instead. The flustered woman insists she can't accept such kindness, but Belinda ignores her, asking what she wants and offering a freshly harvested vegetable salad. Belinda, fanning herself, suggests a warm, slowly simmered tomato stew. The hooded, orange-haired woman reacts with wide-eyed shock as Belinda mentions a premium, juicy steak. In a flash, the woman grabs Belinda's hands, eagerly asking if she heard her correctly. Her hood falling back to reveal her orange hair and glasses, the woman clasps her hands together and ecstatically asks if Belinda really just said beef. A magnificent plate is shown, featuring a perfectly cooked steak with asparagus, tomatoes, and mashed potatoes. Now seated at a fine dining table, the orange-haired woman holds her knife and fork with sparkling eyes, eagerly announcing that she's digging in. Watching the woman eat with gusto, Belinda muses that for an herbivore-looking girl, she eats well, joking that she'd be a mukbang star in Korea. Her gaze drifts to the woman's hair, and she thinks to herself that Vivian's hair was also orange. Belinda recalls the lore from the game. Vivian appears as a colorless ghost who died of starvation, and her quest is called the Tragic Genius Mage's Final Regret, making it impossible to meet a living Vivian in the game. She realizes this is her only chance to meet and revive a living Vivian. As the happy woman savors her meal, Belinda thinks that this is her chance to gain an extra life. Belinda gets her attention by calling her Orange Head, and the startled woman stammers a reply. Later, Belinda questions a nervous woman with orange hair and glasses about two items, the lighthouse of the falling star and twin migratory bird's nest. The woman explains they are popular magic tools, supposedly invented by Mage Bruno, though she hints that in truth their origin is a secret. Terrified under Belinda's gaze, the woman stammers that she knows nothing more. Belinda leans in with a skeptical expression, quietly asking if that's really true. At another time, Belinda orders a waiter to clear the food from the table, causing the orange-haired woman to panic. With a devilish smirk, Belinda taunts her, asking if she finally understands the situation. An info panel explains that Vivian's mentor, the wizard Bruno, will one day publish The Fountain of All Things and be hailed as its creator. Teask. Belinda closes her fan, thinking she only knows the truth because the game's description called the item Vivian's masterpiece. Belinda calls for the waiter to clear the food, causing the orange-haired woman to leap up in a panic, begging him to wait. Belinda asks if she made the item. Belinda cynically tells the orange-haired woman to inform the chef the steak is delicious due to the beef's quality, not her cooking skills, leaving the woman dismayed. The orange-haired woman laments that as a poor commoner, she couldn't afford her own research equipment. The orange-haired woman reveals she surrendered all rights to her inventions to her master for the privilege of studying under him, shocking Belinda. Wham! Belinda slams her hands down on the table in frustration. Composing herself, Belinda makes an offer, asking how much Vivian is currently being paid. Vivian clarifies that as an apprentice, she isn't paid at all and only receives room and board. An exasperated Belinda questions why a wizard with supposed room and board is begging for food at the temple. Vivian weakly explains that she has to eat a little too much as Belinda sighs, thinking it's unbelievable how Bruno not only made her work for free and took all the credit, but also let her starve to death. Vivian smiles gratefully, saying that thanks to her master, she's able to research all she wants. She concludes with firm loyalty that she could never betray him. Belinda looks on with a complicated expression, thinking that as a commoner, Vivian likely had no other choice but to rely on her master. She reasons that she can't just ignore the situation, otherwise Vivian will starve to death, just like in the game. With a pained expression, Belinda thinks that while she didn't want to go this far, she has no choice. Belinda smiles kindly and says she understands, promising not to stop her if that's what she wishes. The confused Vivian looks on as Belinda tells her that if she ever wishes to change the owner of her collar, she should seek out Belinda Blanche of the Blanche family. Standing proudly amidst a backdrop of roses, Belinda declares that unlike Vivian's master, she is kind to competent and obedient dogs. The scene shifts to the Grand Blanche estate. Inside, Belinda stands before Leo and tells him she's giving him a very special task that only her servant can perform. Leo comments on Belinda's recent energy as she hands him a small item. Belinda carefully holds a beautiful peacock feather quill. Belinda instructs Leo to sit at the desk, where a peacock feather quill awaits. Leo, wide-eyed, nervously questions if he is to study. Leo looks up, his eyes sparkling with innocence and surprise. Belinda instructs Leo to copy her, and he enthusiastically agrees. Leo diligently writes his own name, impressing Belinda with his neat handwriting even though he doesn't realize what he's writing. Belinda, in chibi form, proudly observes Leo's excellent progress. Leo looks worried as Belinda announces he will learn 3 words daily and take weekly tests. Belinda playfully threatens to smack Leo's head if he fails, making Leo blush and beg her to forget the last time. A few days later, Belinda dismisses Leo from his studies, telling him he's done for the day, and he happily agrees. Chibi Belinda wonders why cleaning makes Chibi Leo so happy, but concludes that less stress is good for him. Leo tiresomely wipes his forehead as his status window reveals his current low stats, including Little Nutty as his name. Belinda observes that Leo's intelligence and divine power have increased slightly. Belinda recalls a day before the Holy Sword, regretting that she never asked Leo about his dreams. Belinda reflects that for a child like Leo, without adult support, even dreaming is an act of courage. Belinda and Leo ascend stairs together, step by step, as Leo confidently runs ahead. Belinda wishes that someday Leo will have the strength to make his own dreams real. Belinda resolves to raise Leo's stamina, divine power, and mana stats to 100 each. Belinda realizes she needs help raising Leo's divine power and mana, thinking Vivian would be perfect for magic but hasn't contacted her. Belinda, frustrated that Vivian hasn't responded, decides to visit the Mage Tower herself soon. Belinda begins gathering study materials in a library, wondering what Leo might enjoy reading. Belinda looks surprised as she examines an old book, realizing something important. Belinda finds a surprising book titled Abilities That's Shown in the History of the Kingdom. Belinda ponders the nature of abilities as she reads the book. A hooded figure is shown radiating power as text describes how those with abilities react and change the world differently. The book introduces Ophelia, a white-haired woman with a nurturing ability, surrounded by animals in a field. The Nurturer ability allows plants and animals to grow astonishingly healthy and special. Belinda is shocked to see the Blanche family crest on the document, realizing someone in her family also had an ability. An abstract visual represents an ability to control unseen, unknowing, and will-less forces. Belinda ponders if an ability controlling such unseen forces truly deserves to be called the ability of the throne. Chibi Belinda exclaims wow, finding the ability incredibly cool despite not fully understanding its meaning. Belinda reads that abilities are inherited and appear in childhood, dismissing the idea that she could have one without anyone knowing. Belinda stands in a grand hallway, observing that it looks like it will rain all night. Belinda thinks about putting Leo to bed, then notices a mysterious silhouette of a man in the distant hallway. Belinda questions the identity of the silhouette man, wondering if it's a servant, as she had instructed them not to come upstairs. Lightning flashes brightly outside a window, illuminating the stormy night. The reddish-brown-haired man greets Belinda, calling her Belle, which shocks her, and she identifies him as Chevelle. Chevelle asks Belinda about her marriage business. Chevelle smiles, revealing that many replies to Belinda's marriage proposals have arrived and that her plan to divide assets in case of divorce was a clever move. Chevelle asks Belinda if she truly believed her plans alone would keep her safe. Belinda looks distressed, visibly trembling. Belinda's hand trembles as she desperately thinks she needs to leave, but her body remains stiff and unable to move. Belinda internally tells herself to calm down and deal with the situation calmly. Belinda coldly tells Chevelle he has thick skin for intruding without her permission. Chevelle smirks confidently at Belinda. Belinda flinches as Chevelle asks about the brat she's been clinging to. Chevelle observes with a smile Belinda's apparent devotion in feeding and dressing Leo. Chevelle reminds Belinda that he personally chose and sent Leo to her, leaving her to wonder about his intentions. Belinda stands with two maids as Chevelle ominously mentions her previous maids. Chevelle, standing by a rainy window, asks Belinda about her future husband and points out that if she dies after inheriting, all her assets will go to her husband's family. Chevelle, the reddish-brown-haired man, questions Belinda if her future husband could truly be her ally, his remark landing with a talk. Chevelle leans in close to the red-haired woman, mockingly telling her she's foolish for still trusting people, after all she's endured, and needs to learn suspicion. The red-haired woman's hand trembles with a quack, as she realizes her unease towards Chevelle initially felt like disgust. Belinda's internal world shatters as she acknowledges the trembling she feels is not disgust or anger, but a profound fear of Chevelle. The red-haired woman clutches her hair, her face strained with deep distress. The red-haired woman flinches, letting out an ugh as she realizes this bastard is the cause of her torment. A thought bubble explains that this past torment was the real reason Belinda tormented Leo so much. In a series of flashbacks, Belinda reflects on how her inability to trust anyone, despite her dowry, prevented her from marrying. Chevelle grips the red-haired woman's face with a talk, asking if she's finally speechless, perhaps too scared to speak. Narrative text reveals the red-haired woman's harsh insults toward Chevelle were merely a desperate bluff born from her intense fear. Belinda's purple eye gleams with a determined glint as she prepares for something more. The red-haired woman suddenly kicks Chevelle in the backside, ripping his pants with a loud pyack. Chevelle cries out ugh in shock and pain from the unexpected attack. Belinda, with a fierce expression, declares that the fear she experiences is not her own, but Belinda's, as she continues to push Chevelle with impactful pyack and JJAK sounds. Chevelle coughs, blood splattering from his mouth and forehead as he recoils from the assault. Belinda stands confidently, commanding Chevelle to leave everything to her, while a small chibi character thanks readers for their support. Chevelle falls to his knees, exclaiming, "Ugh," as Belinda stands over him. A chibi character thanks readers for supporting the chapter. Belinda clutches a book, confronting Chevelle, who lunges at her as she furiously asks if he has lost his mind with a hyok sound. Belinda stands resolute with purple lightning flashing around her, while Chevelle freezes in shock, letting out a meomshit sound. Chevelle mockingly challenges Belinda to hit him, implying she cannot, but Belinda confidently retorts that he, as a half-breed, knows his place. Belinda reassures Chevelle, telling him she will call a doctor and reveal the truth of what transpired. Belinda, radiating a menacing red aura, considers how she will frame the story, depicting her kind older brother raising a hand against her over a dowry dispute. Chevelle expresses disbelief that anyone would believe her story, but Belinda retorts, pointing out she was exiled to a wretched annex with no servants after the will was read. Chevelle looks distressed as Belinda continues to speak, his expression conveying his discomfort. Belinda explains that people are less interested in a scoundrel's tantrum and prefer the dramatic rumor of a virtuous victim turning aggressor. Chevelle sternly warns Belinda not to let her facade slip, especially since she has not yet managed to kill him, as Belinda returns his gaze with a chilling smile. A quest reward window appears, granting piece of Belinda's memory first, promising a special reward upon acquisition. Belinda smiles with deep satisfaction, exclaiming finally as she reflects on how everything happened at once, faster than she expected. A book unexpectedly falls to the floor with a tuck sound. Both Belinda and Chevelle look startled, turning their heads towards the sound. Leo stands wide-eyed in the doorway, as a panicked voice calls out, "Leo!" Chevelle looks back, his expression turning grim as a red aura emanates from him with a TTAK sound. Belinda's hand firmly clasps Leo's small hand, a powerful Teopik sound symbolizing their connection. Belinda stands protectively in front of Leo, who peeks from behind her, her stance resolute with a sook sound. Chevelle lets out a PFFT, his smirk returning despite his injury. Chevelle throws his head back, laughing mockingly at the sight of Belinda protecting Leo. Chevelle observes that Belinda has found something precious, stating that people grow stronger when they have something to protect, making Belinda realize she let her guard down with a JAK sound. Chevelle addresses Leo, asking his name. Leo begins to answer with a nervous I, but Belinda quickly orders him not to respond. A chibi character provides a promotional message. Chevelle, with a sinister smile and a yoke sound, states, "Let's go!" As Belinda and Leo stand together, Chevelle's red-bordered thought bubble reveals his twisted joy that Belinda found something precious, making it all the more worth taking away. Belinda walks away, holding Leo's hand, who looks up at her with concern, their steps making a SSOG sound. Belinda, with a determined expression, asserts that Chevelle hasn't even managed to kill her yet, while Leo wonders why Lady Belinda would say something like that. Leo, looking worried, wonders if Lady Belinda had a fight with the head of the family. A close-up shows Belinda's hand trembling, a deal sound, as Leo thinks, "Lady Belinda." Leo looks up with determined blue eyes, resolving to be the one to protect Lady Belinda. Belinda stands outside a grand estate, ensuring no one is around. Belinda looks concerned, her hand to her mouth with a jalgoon sound, realizing she must be more vigilant about Leo's safety after Chevelle saw him. Chibi Belinda proudly reflects on her badass performance, realizing she's truly cut out to be a video game villainess. Belinda stands in a cemetery, thinking that now is not the time for such thoughts. Belinda looks surprised, her hand to her mouth in a gesture of shock. Belinda's long, flowing red hair is viewed from behind, surrounded by pink floral patterns. Belinda expresses surprise and hope that the sparkling, translucent system window announcing a special memory piece reward will grant her something useful. Belinda's face shows a subtle smile as she anticipates discovering what the special reward entails. A monochromatic, high-angle view reveals a grand estate interior filled with elegantly dressed people, as a small, red-haired girl stands alone near a staircase. The red-haired girl, clutching a black umbrella, walks out into the pouring rain in front of the grand mansion, with a loud SWAAA sound of rain. Huddled under her umbrella, the red-haired girl cries quietly with a sob, sniffle. A red-haired man, seen from behind, also weeps in the rain, emitting soft hic-sob sounds. The red-haired man turns, asking if the girl is crying, then gasps in shock and falls back, exclaiming he saw a GHO after being startled by the small figure of the red-haired girl. The red-haired girl, with pigtails and an umbrella, looks shocked amidst flashing lightning, thinking, "A ghost!" The terrified red-haired man sits on the wet ground, hands raised, believing he has encountered a ghost. The red-haired girl, looking unamused, dismisses his fear by stating, "There's no ghost here." The red-haired man appears flustered, sighing at the realization that adults like him believe in ghosts more than children. The red-haired man claims his tears are merely raindrops, to which the red-haired girl, holding her umbrella, replies that she will pretend to believe him. The red-haired girl directly asks the man, "Mister, you're my uncle, aren't you?" leaving him visibly surprised. Her uncle, with a melancholic smile, confirms that while he cannot claim to be her brother, her father was indeed his older brother. The uncle openly weeps, thinking his tears are returning as he calls out, "Bro! Brother!" But the red-haired girl sternly commands him to stop it. The red-haired girl instructs her uncle not to cry, explaining that it feels strange, like my dad is crying. The uncle tries to stifle his tears, letting out a frustrated HMPH. As his eyes well up, the angry red-haired girl in chibi form scolds her uncle, questioning how her brother, her father, could leave so soon, and fiercely repeats, "No, I said don't cry." Belinda, as a child, tearfully begs, "Don't cry," before letting out a soft, "Ah." Belinda screams loudly, calling out, "Mommy! Why, Daddy?" As her uncle looks on in surprise, Belinda and her uncle embrace, both crying and calling out, "Brother and Mommy." The uncle holds Belinda in his lap in front of the mansion, both sniffling together. The uncle offers comfort to Belinda, telling her, "Here, HMPH, go ahead," but she continues to cry out, "Wah." The uncle apologizes for showing such a pathetic sight, and Belinda reassures him, saying, "It's okay." Belinda looks down sadly, revealing her thought that no one cried for my parents. Belinda quietly thinks so it's okay, as her uncle looks at her with concern, calling her by her name, Belinda. A low shot through the bushes shows the uncle in the distance, indicating a moment of quiet reflection or departure. The uncle tells Belinda he has to leave now, prompting her to ask, "Now already?" A male hand gently pats Belinda's head, offering a tender farewell. The uncle looks down at Belinda with a gentle smile as he pats her head, affectionately calling her Belle. Belinda, now slightly older and seated at a dining table, earnestly requests her uncle to be my guardian. Her uncle dramatically spits out his drink in shock, surrounded by question marks, upon hearing Belinda's request. The uncle, looking surprised, questions, "Guardian?" Belinda firmly confirms her request, explaining that there are too many leeches clinging to my family like mosquitoes. Belinda elaborates, stating she needs someone who's sound and not greedy for money. Belinda concludes her request by adding that she needs someone who liked my parents and will also be good to me. Belinda formally asks her uncle to become my legal father, leaving him in contemplative silence. Belinda gestures for everyone to please step back as two maids and another man move away in the background. Her uncle, visibly flustered, tells Belinda, You can't just say things like that carelessly." The uncle expresses his concern that becoming her legal father would make me the head of the family, wouldn't it? The uncle thinks with extreme discomfort, "Ugh, I can't do it. Just the thought of it makes me sick," while Belinda calmly observes him. The uncle tries to gently decline, stating he is satisfied enough just being your uncle, but Belinda angrily shouts, "No." Belinda throws a full tantrum, kicking and screaming, I don't want it," demanding, "Be my dad, become my dad." "No, Belinda, this isn't such a simple matter. Please, 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 don't be my uncle, be my dad." Belinda, in the midst of her tantrum, yells her own name, "Belinda," from the floor. "You!" The uncle kneels down to Belinda's level, looking concerned as she sits on the floor. The uncle checks Belinda for any bruises, scolding her that it's dangerous to throw a tantrum on the floor. With a gentle smile, the uncle instructs Belinda to throw her tantrums on the bed next time and promises to wait until she is ready to talk. Belinda smiles brightly as her uncle gently holds her hand, but regretfully tells her that, "I can't grant your wish this time." A lone, red-haired boy stands amidst dark, thorny branches, contemplating that the existence of a son could push back his right to succession. A red-haired woman, Belinda, turns away with a ribbon in her hair, tearfully asking for understanding as she states, "It's all for you." Belinda holds the hand of the red-haired man, her uncle, who seems surprised as she questions if he was kind to me. A younger, tearful Belinda with striking red hair and purple eyes angrily demands to know, "Why were you so kind to me?" if her request was to be denied. Young Belinda's memory replays the brown-haired man diligently watching over her in bed all night, making her question, "Why did you stay up all night to watch over me when I was sick?" Belinda recalls more moments, questioning why the brown-haired man always tried to have dinner with her and kissed her forehead every night before bed. Belinda sobs uncontrollably, feeling betrayed, crying that her uncle made her so weak. And she would have been fine. If I hadn't had you, uncle. Belinda's red-haired uncle looks concerned, calling her Belle, while Belinda questions if she is a bad kid, but insists she wants to be his real daughter. A hand slams down with a sharp sound, conveying sudden impact or frustration. Belinda, in a rapid burst of movement, runs away from her red-haired uncle, who urgently calls out, "Belle, wait!" Belinda lies sadly on her bed, declaring, "I'm not going to talk to Uncle anymore." A gentle knocking is heard at the door, followed by a soft voice calling, "Belinda." The red-haired man, Belinda's uncle, stands by the door, calling out her name, "Belinda." Belinda's red-haired uncle, with a solemn expression, reflects on having told her about his wife who died giving birth to our daughter. "Didn't I?" Belinda's red-haired uncle, with a tearful eye, confides that he doesn't think of her as his niece, but as the daughter I lost along with my wife. Belinda lies, facing away, in an ethereal space, thinking with melancholy. Is that not enough? The red-haired man, Belinda's uncle, stands by a window, looking troubled and deep in contemplation. The red-haired man's eyes widen in dawning realization, accompanied by a soft sound of clarity. A chibi Belinda peeks mischievously from behind a wall, asserting, "I don't believe it." Chibi Belinda, with a determined expression, demands proof that I have become Uncle's real daughter to truly feel at ease. Belinda's red-haired uncle gently explains that while he is confident as a guardian, he may not be a good father. The red-haired man appears surprised as Belinda reassures him, "That's okay," confessing she can't promise to be a good daughter either. Belinda passionately pleads with her uncle, her eyes welling up with tears as she gently clasps his hands. Belinda's red-haired uncle smiles warmly, conceding defeat and acknowledging, "Really, I can't win against you." The red-haired man presents adoption papers to Belinda, calling her Belle and confirming their new official family status. Belinda's red-haired uncle further assures her that the position of the family's official heir is definitely yours. Belinda embraces her red-haired uncle tightly, both sharing a tender, emotional moment. Belinda and her red-haired uncle share a joyful and loving hug, both smiling blissfully. A red-haired woman with long, flowing hair walks alone through a desolate graveyard, her back to the viewer. The red-haired woman, touching her head, questions if she is experiencing Belinda's memory. The red-haired woman clutches her head in distress, an intense wave of confusion or pain washing over her. A hand holds up an ornate locket containing a picture and the inscription, "To my precious Belle," causing the red-haired woman to whisper, "Uncle." A black-haired boy stands nearby as the red-haired woman tries to calm herself, reminding herself that these are Belinda's feelings, not my feelings. The black-haired boy turns, startled, asking, "Lady Belinda?" which makes the red-haired woman gasp. The black-haired boy, looking flustered, thinks to himself that he must have been away for too long. The black-haired boy looks confused, stammering, well, while Belinda looks at him, wondering what he is trying to say. The black-haired boy suddenly dashes away, exclaiming, "Just a moment," leaving the red-haired woman behind. The red-haired woman looks downcast, thinking, "Did I make a scary face again?" The black-haired boy carefully puts away a handkerchief, still appearing shy. The red-haired woman, crying, questions what the black-haired boy is talking about. A close-up shows a single tear rolling down the red-haired woman's cheek as she expresses surprise, asking, "Since when was I crying?" The red-haired woman reassures the black-haired boy that these aren't my tears, they're really Belinda's tears. The black-haired boy, looking distressed, thinks to himself, "He must have worried after seeing me cry." A chibi red-haired woman affectionately pats the head of a chibi black-haired boy, calling him such a good kid. The chibi red-haired woman covers her eye, saying, "Oops," and claiming, "Just some dust got in my eye," to hide her tears. The red-haired woman offers the handkerchief to the black-haired boy, stating, "Let me handle this handkerchief," to which he responds with a hesitant, "Ah, The red-haired woman, Belinda, looking quizzical, asks, "A guest, you say?" After explaining she borrowed the handkerchief from one and needs to return it. A tall masked figure, the red-haired man's uncle, arrives and declares to Belinda and the boy, "You don't have to return it." The masked man is revealed as Sir Penadel, prompting the red-haired woman to realize, "What? You were the guest?" Sir Penadel, the masked man, seriously requests a moment of her time. Belinda, the red-haired woman, and a black-haired man sit in a grand room, and the black-haired man asks why she has returned. Belinda, the red-haired woman, responds that she came to ask him to reconsider his decision. The masked man, Sir Penadel, states that His Excellency commanded prioritizing the young lady's conditions. Belinda, the red-haired woman, crosses her arms with a stern expression as Sir Penadel mentions the condition of handing over the mine's ownership. Belinda reflects on their persistence despite rejection, realizing they covet the Harrington mine and recalling her visit to understand the Grand Duke's intentions on the day Sir Penadel visited. Belinda continues her thoughts, highlighting that Harrington is the continent's sole mine producing high-grade mana stones, showcasing glowing raw mana stones in mine carts. Belinda, the red-haired woman, addresses someone, likely Sir Penadel, with a formal "sir." Belinda's thoughts reveal that within the Harrington mine lies a gate connected to the demon world, showing a dark, corrupted mine entrance with dark tendrils. Belinda's thoughts explain that demonic energy from the gate mutates minerals into mana stones and surrounding creatures into demonic beasts, depicting a fearsome wolf and an orc-like monster. Belinda further thinks that the Blanche family granted exclusive demonic beast hunting rights to the Valois-Sten family while profiting from selling mana stones, with images of overflowing treasure chests. Belinda, the red-haired woman, questions how the reclusive Valois-Sten could possess a kingdom-wide merchant group, unlike the Blanche family. Belinda, the red-haired woman, thinks about the Archduke, who lacks sales routes, questioning his motive for wanting mine ownership while Sir Penadel, the masked man, is shown. Sir Penadel, the masked man, declines to reveal the information, stating he cannot tell her about it. Chibi Belinda, the red-haired woman, glares, thinking that he won't tell her easily, while a chibi masked man remains silent. Belinda, the red-haired woman, looks troubled, contemplating that she would normally chase him out, but Schubel's recent activities are concerning her. Belinda recalls the game's various endings for her character, noting numerous instances of accidental death. Belinda questions if those supposed accidents were truly just simple accidents, as a sinister red silhouette with a smiling face looms. Belinda thinks she needs a powerful backer, a high-ranking noble, strong enough to oppose Schubel and the Blanche family. Belinda then considers needing a capable knight for 24-hour protection, wondering if Valois-Sten is truly her only option, as Sir Penadel, the masked man, observes her. Belinda's gloved hand places a small, ornate container into another gloved hand, with a soft click indicating her agreement. Belinda, the red-haired woman, puts on glasses, confidently stating she will review the contract due to the Archduke's earnestness. Belinda, wearing glasses, is revealed to have received lie detector glasses as a special reward for obtaining a piece of her memory, which is part of a good child making 4-piece set. The narration explains these glasses are a default item when playing as Ophelia, showing a silver-haired woman Ophelia with a black-haired boy Leo. Belinda, wearing glasses, reflects on never using the item in the game due to its disregard for the protagonist's rights. But now, stuck in this body, she reassures herself it's fine as she's not using it on Leo. Belinda, wearing her glasses, decides to use them to determine if the Grand Duke is trustworthy, looking directly at Sir Penadel, the masked man. A heartbeat monitor graphic appears above Sir Penadel, the masked man's head, accompanied by a sound. Chibi Belinda, wearing glasses, looks surprised, asking why a heart monitor suddenly appeared, while Chibi Sir Penadel looks on inquisitively. Belinda, the red-haired woman, wearing glasses, asks Sir Penadel again for Valois-Sten's true purpose in wanting the mine. Sir Penadel, the masked man, states that he cannot accept the proposal without knowing the Grand Duke's purpose and reveals the Grand Duke wishes to seal the mine, surprising Belinda, who questions sealing a valuable asset. Belinda, wearing glasses, pointedly asks if the Grand Duke is someone who commits acts for money. Belinda, wearing glasses, asks if the Grand Duke is a lecher. Sir Penedel, the masked man, denies both, and the heart monitor displays his responses as true. Belinda, the red-haired woman wearing glasses, appears frustrated, wondering if her lie detector glasses are malfunctioning due to Sir Penedel's stoic nature. Belinda, wearing glasses, intently asks if Grand Duke Valois truly killed her family and usurped their titles, prompting a slight widening of Sir Penedel's eyes. Sir Penedel, the masked man, looks at Belinda, still wearing glasses, and asks why she would inquire about such a matter. Belinda, the red-haired woman wearing glasses, looks intensely at Sir Penedel, demanding an answer. Sir Penedel, the masked man, closes and then opens his eyes, which now glow red, as he grimly confirms that it is the truth. Grand Duke Chesser, an unmasked black-haired man, stands by a grand window, looking out with his back to the viewer. Grand Duke Chesser's gloved hand gently places Sir Penedel's mask onto a cushioned stool with a soft tap. Belinda, now solemn and wearing glasses, ponders if Grand Duke Valois truly killed her family and usurped the title. Grand Duke Chesser's gloved hand grips his shirt collar tightly, looking distressed. Grand Duke Chesser, unmasked and with red eyes, stares blankly, clutching his collar in anguish. Grand Duke Chesser, with blue eyes, stands composedly beside an ornate white birdcage. Grand Duke Chesser's gloved hand gently reaches towards a mechanical bird inside the cage, with a soft whirring sound. A close-up reveals the intricate mechanical bird in the cage, its gears visible, accompanied by clicking and winding sounds. Grand Duke Chesser, the black-haired man, looks serious as he hears fragmented sounds, perhaps like a name, from the mechanical bird. The mechanical bird, with its wings spread, excitedly greets Grand Duke Chesser, proclaiming his full title. Grand Duke Chesser looks at the mechanical bird in the cage, questioning why it's only contacting him now and expressing his concern. The mechanical bird, looking apologetic, replies that this is precisely why it is contacting him now, while Grand Duke Chesser thinks that's not what he meant. Grand Duke Chesser, arms crossed, asks the mechanical bird if it's managing well as his stand-in, to which the bird replies about struggling through paperwork daily. Grand Duke Chesser expresses a wish to be reborn as a high noble with loyal subordinates in his next life, and the mechanical bird, Penedel, tells him he is noisy. The mechanical bird, Penedel, asks Grand Duke Chesser if he is resting well, expressing concern. Grand Duke Caesar questions if he is expected to rest until mold and mushrooms sprout on his body. Grand Duke Chesser states he got a job, prompting a surprised yes reaction from an unseen party. The mechanical bird, Penedel, reacts with wide, shocked eyes and a huge yes upon hearing Grand Duke Chesser got engaged. Penedel looks utterly aghast, mouth agape, as it hears Grand Duke Chesser got a new job and is getting married. The narration explains that before a verbal promise to transfer the Harrington mine from the late Marquis Blanche, the situation wasn't complicated. The narration continues, stating that because the Marquis died before signing, the mine became Lady Blanche's marriage dowry, a frozen asset, picturing a red-haired woman in a wedding gown. The mechanical bird, Penedel, senses something bad has happened and declares it will go to the capital immediately. Grand Duke Chesser, by the birdcage, tells Penedel to stop talking nonsense and investigate Belinda Blanche, as she will become Our Lady. Grand Duke Chesser looks thoughtful, inwardly wondering about Lady Blanche's true nature. Text describes Lady Blanche as a tall, hulking figure, able to defeat beasts and enemies with a glare, shown with a fierce red-haired woman. The mechanical bird, Penedel, excitedly recalls how they once tried to guess Grand Duke Chesser's ideal type. Grand Duke Chesser points and jokingly promises to push for an engagement with such a lady if he meets her in the capital. A quick sound accompanies Grand Duke Chesser's gloved hand dismissively gesturing, telling the mechanical bird to just leave it. A sound marks the mechanical bird shrinking and deactivating within the elegant cage, becoming small and still. Grand Duke Chesser stands by the now silent bird cage, relieved that it's finally quiet. Grand Duke Chesser looks solemn, pondering the concept of marriage. Grand Duke Chesser observes the red-haired woman, Belinda Blanche, at a gravesite, musing that the kingdom's greatest villainess he met was different from the rumors. Grand Duke Chesser, now partially masked, watches the red-haired woman quietly mourning, questioning if the vast difference between rumors and reality implies intentional slander. Grand Duke Chisar, unmasked, seriously contemplates that someone went out of their way to smear Belinda's name.